just making sure this is on. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. First off, thank you so much, every one of you, for attending and being here. I think we as women, we have a tendency to do everything for everybody else, and we never take time for ourselves. So I commend you all for being here. Thank you so much, and thank you also for the invite. I share that sentiment. I'm incredibly honored and humbled to be here. So thank you. And being asked to speak on this topic, it kind of forced me to undergo a really great process, which was the only way for me to figure out what landed me here as the general manager of Toyota Bozeman, was to really look back. And as I look back, I realized I'm looking at a blazed trail. Sometimes a burnt to a crisp trail, but nonetheless, it was a blazed trail, and the only way for a trail to really form itself is through a series of dots and points along the way. And so those dots can be representative of pivotal moments in my life or influential people. But I thought I'd share with you some of those dots. So my very first dot was at the age of 5, kindergarten, and I learned the value of perseverance, and it was a potato sack race. So the potato sack race gets going, and I start jumping my little tail off, and I jump so hard, I face planted like hard, like scorpion face plant. I know what I'm talking about. And I remember being really bummed out. I was laying there on the ground, and I don't know how long I sat there, but all of a sudden I could hear my family yelling at me to get up and keep jumping. And so I got up and I started jumping again. And before you know it, I passed a kid, and I passed another one. And I actually ended up winning that race. And I learned the value of perseverance at the age of 5 with my little mind blown, but all we have to do if we fall is just get up and finish what we start. Keep your promises to yourself, keep your promises to others, you know? So my next spot on the map, I would say, without a doubt, there's no way to earn a seat at the table, let alone the head of the table, without plain old-fashioned hard work. You're gonna have to work harder than those around you, period. And I learned about work ethic from old cowboys. So I grew up at a ranch outside of Ennis, Montana, and when you're a kid on a ranch, you are free manual labor. And that can be cleaning out the barn, polishing the tap room, it doesn't matter, you're free labor. And as my father instilled work ethic with my brother and I, he also told us, if you're gonna do something, make sure to do it right. Do it right the first time. Take pride in your work. And I'm gonna level that up a little bit, ladies. Let's take unrelenting pride in our work. Make sure to recruit those around you to do the same. You do not want to end up being the boss of a lazy team. You want to be the boss of a team that works really hard and has unrelenting pride. I have some that are sitting here today, and that is how we move mountains together. So thank you. So my next dot is very special. Does anybody have anybody in their life that you know absolutely changed the course of your life? Like you know you wouldn't be here if it weren't for them. I'm sure everybody does. And for me, that was Mrs. Northway. So Mrs. Northway is a retired teacher at Ennis High School. She was also an advisor of an organization called FCCLA. And as a freshman, I was attending my first district meeting, and there were other high schoolers running that meeting, and I must have been looking at them with admiration. And she saw me looking at them with admiration, and she kind of nudged me, and she said, you know, you could do that. And I was so blown away that she thought that I could do that. There was just no way I could do that. But Mrs. Northway saw something in me that I did not see in myself. And she continued to push me throughout my high school career and challenge me. And she had to say, you got this. She'd always say, you got this. And she said that so many times that I ended up becoming a national officer of that organization, and I received a scholarship. I truly would not be here today if it weren't for Mrs. Northway. She taught me the value of believing in others, especially when they don't believe in themselves. And she also taught me the value of personal challenge. People who choose to do what others aren't willing to do inevitably become successful. There's a testament right here. And we have to make ourselves uncomfortable. And yes, it's going to be scary and it's going to be intimidating, but if you do it, it will pay off, I promise. Be brave. Bravery is not only personally rewarding, but I'll tell you this, bravery fills bank accounts too. Just saying. And speaking of uncomfortable and scary, has anybody ever been fired? Anybody? I have as well. I was fired hard. Like, fired. And I was terrified and so embarrassed and mortified. And I was on the phone with my mother and she just said, Jenny Wren, when the going gets tough, the badasses get creative. And I just loved that. That really snapped me out of it. You know, we're gonna face obstacles in our life, and sometimes in business, you're so in the weeds, you can't see the solution. You know, remind yourself to work on your business, not just in your business. Right, Ms. Myra? And so, allow yourself the opportunity to be creative, for sure. It's incredibly rewarding. Alarm here, sorry. So I thought I'd throw out a few do's. Definitely avoid gossip, rumors, and pettiness. That will easily dismiss you as a professional before you know it. Also, take yourself seriously, and I mean that. Take your clothes seriously, take what you have to say seriously, take your attendance seriously. If you're going to be there, be there. Be there better than anybody else. And we also have to learn to manage our emotions. Now, not eliminate them, but we definitely have to learn how to manage them. And a trick that I use when I find myself reacting, because I can be intense, is I just buy myself a little bit of time. Usually with a little bit of time, it's not as big of a deal as it seemed in that moment. There are some perks. Being a female in a male-dominated industry, one, never a line in the bathroom, ever. There was today, but not in our industry, and I never have to share a hotel room usually. But my favorite perk, for sure, is that we have the opportunity to disrupt and change the narrative in our business. I mean, we get to bring new perspectives and opinions that have not been considered before. And we actually get to be authors of new chapters in industry. And that's such an incredible perk we're fighting for sure. So as I wind it down, I will leave you with my last dot. And my last dot is my mother-in-law, Barb. And years ago, I was struggling. I was paycheck to paycheck. I was working several jobs trying to make ends meet. I definitely didn't feel like I was fulfilling my worth. And she gave me a bracelet. And this bracelet has just 3 words on it, 3 very simple words. I haven't actually taken it off since, but I'm going to take it off today. And here's the deal. If you're going to be blazing trails, especially as you climb to the top, it's going to get real lonely, and I'm talking lonely. It's going to be hard. You're going to have sleepless nights. You're going to feel like it's not worth it anymore, and you're going to want to throw in the towel, okay? But just in that moment, when you're feeling that way, just remember these 3 words, okay? Keep fucking going.
Miss Northway out there? Yeah. Someone that saw something in you that you didn't know that you had. I mean, those are the moments, right, where you're like, it's an aha moment for yourself. So I love that you shared that story. We're going to now open it up to some questions for these ladies. I mean, they all did an amazing job today. But what questions do you guys have? I can bring around the microphone, or if you're loud enough, you can just stand up and go for it. Put your questions up there. Go ahead.
I'm not enough, trust me. Well, working in a male-dominated industry, of course, I think a lot of times our customers expect when they call in, when they come in, they're going to speak with a male. Sometimes they're pleasantly surprised, sometimes it's not a pleasant surprise. How do you guys deal with that? How have you experienced that when either the customer demands to speak with a male, or you just tell it's not going very well because you're a female?
Sure, I'll take that one on first. That actually does happen a decent amount. You know, you've got an upset customer and they say, yeah, I wanted to speak to a manager. And you say, yeah, you're talking to her. And in my experience, you know, if you just say, yeah, that's me, I'm the general manager of the Toyota Bozeman store, how can I help you, sir? and you just have some assertion in your voice that's just kind of like a take charge, we're gonna handle business today, how can I help you? That seems to diffuse the situation. I really don't think I've run into a time where, I mean, I have. And in those times where they demand to speak to another man, you know, listen, I'm the one that can actually help you. I'm here to help you, and so if you just share with me your story, I'd be happy to help you, but otherwise, we're dead in the water here. But the buck stops here.
Love that. Does anybody else want to answer?
I don't necessarily deal with customers in the role that I have, but I'll just share maybe a funny story. I just find it, I mean, a little bit entertaining. A couple years ago, I was at some community event and was